I appreciate that you have taxes in early, but listing a $3,000 deduction on losses incurred from your fantasy leagues as charity is not allowed.
Hi everyone, this is Will O'Toole welcoming you to another edition of Park Ridge Sports History. This week, of course, we kicked off with baseball returning, and the Mets and the Yankees both off to pretty good starts, as actually the season, which began in late March, now turns to April. It used to be the traditional day was April, but that's changed many moons ago. Anyway, I'd like to focus today on Golden Glove winners and really highlight a few of them. And the reason why I said that is that I am going to do a show on rookies. I know I have done a previous show on rookies, but next week I'm going to do a show on potential rookies of the year this year, according to all of the different websites, Baseball Prospectus, maybe Baseball Reference, USA Today, etc. And just do a little history of that, because sometimes being touted as a high rookie can really turn against you. And other times our great rookies come out of nowhere and turn into Hall of Famers. And sometimes the writers, the scouts, the managers, the fans, and the players get it right with the Rookie of the Year. So I'd like to devote a little time on that. But this week, and I love doing the fantasy baseball because everyone loves when after March Madness, after the Super Bowl drama of the lottery, of the chart, and now then you get the March Madness. Now you get the baseball fantasy, and it used to really drive conversation at the water cooler in all corporate offices, in all walks of life, among all people who really deemed themselves baseball fans. And I know it's gotten a lot of criticism in the past, but I have to tell you this, the people who do the fantasy, boy, they know the rosters inside and out. So they have to be celebrated and commended for knowing almost every ball player. Now, they may get some of their scouting wrong, a la me. I have won it in the past once by sheer luck. Thank you, Bill Swift, San Francisco Giants way back in '92. However, I like everyone else, have gotten it wrong. And but it's a fun if you don't take it too seriously. It's a lot of fun to do the baseball fantasy, but it does make you a more rabid fan, a more enthusiastic fan about box scores and everything baseball through the summer and into the fall. So it's a lot of fun that way. Anyway, I was looking at the Gold Gloves, and I did know this and I didn't know this, and then I looked it up. The Gold Glove has been around since 1957 when Rollins introduced it, probably as a way to stay connected to baseball and also to sell equipment, but also to really highlight some of the outstanding defensive players in the game. Because let's face it, most players are in the Hall of Fame not because of their defense. Can make an argument maybe for Ozzie Smith, just offhand, but many of them, let's face it, are in the Baseball Hall of Fame because of their offensive stats. All right, just look at some of the guys who have been left off and some of the guys who are in. And we've done a study of that where I see tons of guys who are in the Hall of Fame with, let's say, lower WARs than guys who aren't in. And we've had a list of that in the past. So I'm not going to go into that today, but I will in future shows. But I'm going to highlight some of the guys that I knew, that I watched. Some obviously I didn't or didn't recall. But the very first guy, and I'm getting my information, of course, I would have gone to MLB. I have to tell you, Wikipedia every once in a while does it where it makes it very easier for the reader to understand the layout of the page and how lists are done. So I was looking at a number of sites. Kudos here to Wikipedia because they had it arranged just the way I wanted it. And I was looking, and obviously the great Willie Mays, Brooks Robinson, of course, Greg Maddux, and of course Jim Cott have probably they're up there in the top 10 in terms of Gold Gloves. In fact, Greg Maddux, as I'm looking right now, has the most of any player with 18. However, since it was done in 57, and yes, it's a big if, and we know the ifs, that word. Let's face it, 1951, Willie Mays comes up. He dominates the position center field from 1957 all the way, I think, to 1966, I think, where he won it in center field every year. He probably would have won it, maybe not in 51 when he comes up as a rookie, but he certainly would have won it in 52, 53, 54, his MVP year, 55, and 56. So you're adding, let's just even say that you're adding 4 more onto that. And, Mays would have probably had the most all time. What I was amazed, and no pun intended on that, is that how few actually Hank Aaron won. And the reason being is he was playing right field at a time when another guy by the name of Roberto Clemente was anchoring right field for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So there's 2 guys that probably knocked each other out. And it's something that I always thought was interesting. Here's the baseball all-star game. They just throw outfielders out there as a ballot. But here's the Gold Glove, signifying left, center, and right. To me, Gold Glove does it better than baseball because to me, left, right, and center are 3 completely different positions. Just like, I mean, how come they just don't make infield positions for the All-Star game? Because first is so different from third. Yes, they're both corner positions, but their responsibilities, the angle of the ball, and the pressure on you are so different. And even short and second, totally different positions. Some people have often said that you had to have the stronger arm to play second. I think Rogers Hornsby was a big believer in that because you're making a toss from second, especially on the double play, going against your body, not going with your body as a shortstop does as he graces over the second base to make the play to first. So here's Jim Kaat. And I am so happy that he is in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to tout a guy who probably, in his own way, really got things going for Jim Kaat in the Hall of Fame. And that was Bill James, of course, with baseball analytics and all the rest of it. And here's what I mean. Years ago, he wrote a book on, let's say, the 500 greatest players or whatever. So I looked up Jim Kaat, and what was interesting, because he used to do baseball, he used to do a yearly digest of baseball players and essays on the year before. This other book, I can't remember offhand what it is. It might be called like Baseball's Greatest Players or something, Bill James. But he had a study on Jim Kaat. Now, his whole point with Kaat was that he probably would have been looked on in a different way had he been able to change some of his win-loss records along the way. Not give him more wins and not take away losses, just rearrange it. And when he did it his way, it was kind of interesting. First of all, Kaat comes up in 61 with Minnesota, really full time, and he goes 9-17. But fortunately for Minnesota, they didn't really give up on him. Almost, I'd like to say what the White Sox did with Rich Gossage. They realized, though, that Gossage wasn't a starter. He should be in the pen. And so Chuck Tanner moves him into the bullpen. And, of course, he goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. But he loses 17 games in 1971 and winning only 9. Anyway, Kaat then wins 18 the next year and makes the All-Star team. Then goes 10-10, 17-11, 18-11, has his great years 1966 with 25 wins, the most he ever had in one season. And between 65 and 66, Kaat leads the league in games started with 42 and 41 respectively. And in 66, he had 19 complete games, along with a leading 304 innings pitched. Now you say, yeah, the Twins were finished down that year. They did not win the pennant. In fact, let me just check this. The Twins finished in 1966. They finished in second place behind the Baltimore Orioles. And But here's the point with Cott. He wins 25, then 16, 14, 14, 14. Has a losing record in 71. He goes 13 and 14. And then has a really terrific season in 72. Goes 10 and 2. I think Cott got hurt for some reason. Anyway, his final year with Minnesota, he goes 11 and 13. And basically resurrects his career with the White Sox. Now, what Bill James was saying, and now I want to show you this. You take away those 25 wins, and let's just give him 20. So now you have 5 wins to play with. And all of a sudden, let's just say that 18-game winning season from 1965 becomes 20 and 11. And you still have 3 more wins to play with here. And let's just say you gave him 17 wins. Now it goes to 20. He would have had 3 consecutive 20-win seasons during really just moving into his prime of 27 years old. He would have been 25 and 26 with 3 now back-to-back 20-win seasons. And James's whole point is you put those 3 20-game winning seasons along with a 20-game winning season that he had with the White Sox when he resurrected his career. And you are talking, or actually he had back-to-back 20-win seasons with the White Sox in 74 and 75. So you put those together, and now you're thinking, man, this guy belongs in the Hall of Fame. And he could have still had the same records, but he would have had not 3, but 5 20-win seasons. Now you're looking at him in a different light. And that was James's position. That was his point. Sometimes you look at these guys and you think, just at a glance, well, he only won 20 games once. 20. All right, I'll even give him 3. And you're saying, well, maybe that 283 was more like he just lasted, which he did, cut 25 years. So there's really not any kind of respect for the 283 wins. Now, though, you change that up a little bit. You're not adding any wins. You're just relocating them. Now you go from 3 to 5 20-game winning seasons. And you're saying, wow, that's some pitcher. And that was the whole essence of James's point. So here's Jim Cott. And on top of the fact that Cott won 283 games, was the fact that he won so many Gold Gloves. I think he won 16, if I want to be sure about that. Let me just see. Because they had this, and I had it right in front of me. Maddox has the most. He's got 18. And he won 13 consecutive from 1990 to 2002. Brooks Robinson, and this might be funny. Brooks and Frank does win a Golden Glove or a Gold Glove with the Reds. And I don't believe he won any with the Orioles. But I think the Robinsons may be the only ones with the same last name who are totally different players. For instance, there's no Smith who has ever won it, no Jones who's ever won it. And Robinson, here they are winning it. And Brooks, of course, won a ton in a row. Really good player. Let me just get you Brooks. Because even though, classy guy, 78.4 WAR, had a 267 batting average. Remember, he's playing during the 60s when baseball, it was almost like a modern day dead ball era. Hit 268 home runs. Ready for this? He won Gold Gloves from 1960 all the way consecutively now. I'm talking about. He won it from 1960 all the way to 1975. You're talking about 16 years in a row that he won the Gold Glove. And in all those years, with the exception of 2, 3, 4, he finished at least in the running in the MVP. And in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times Brooks finished in the top 10 in the MVP voting. And really, when you think about it, The Orioles, early in his career, okay, he's the MVP in 64. The Orioles finally break through and win 66, sweeping the Dodgers to win the World Series. They are back again in 69, 70, and 71. Of course, 70, he has that unbelievable, really, even though he won all those gold gloves, that 70 series against the Reds really is the highlight of his career and brings him, like Clemente in 71, brings him to the forefront of the American consciousness and appreciation of each player's skills. But that was Brooks, 71. And then, of course, he would win 4 more. Now, I have to be fair. The Gold Glove has been derided early as almost like a beauty contest, personality. Many times it went to the guy with the reputation as being a good glove man. As I've stated, I think you could actually argue there's more legitimacy with winning the Gold Glove today than there was maybe all those years ago. But really, when you think about it, knock Frank Robinson as a fielder. He's a 5-tool player. Knock Brooks Robinson. He may not be 5-tool. He was a little slow, maybe not a high average hitter, but certainly he's a Hall of Famer. And his great defense probably overshadowed his lack of speed and maybe his lack of, his batting average. But yet, it's still a pretty good batting average for the times he played in, 267. All right. Now, the 2 guys I wanted to focus on were Clete Boyer and Ken Boyer. Clete does win a Gold Glove, and they are, I believe, the first brothers to ever win, not in the same year. But actually, Clete never did it in the American League. He had to get traded to the Atlanta Braves in 1967 and then wins it in 1969, the Gold Glove. Meanwhile, his brother Ken, who was the MVP like Brooks Robinson in 1964. I got to be honest with you. If you can see this, here's the funny thing. I had to get this picture of Clete Boyer because he's a right-handed hitter, and Topps has him in a reverse the picture. He's a lefty there in that picture. If you took a look at it, he's a lefty. I wanted to just make sure. And, of course, here's Ken Boyer with the old St. Louis uniforms of probably the 50s and early 60s. But anyway, it's not really a good picture of showing what a defensive stalwart he was, because it looks like either A, the ball is getting by him, B, he dropped the ball, or C, he overran the ball. So I love this picture. I had to show it, not to criticize Boyer, who actually had a 62.8 WAR. In his career, he was 282 home runs, 287 batting average, drove in 1141 RBIs, and did lead the league in 64. Like Robinson, each one drove in a leading RBIs in 64 to win their MVPs. Actually, Boyer, from the start, 1955, this is Ken, all right? He, man, oh man, really was an excellent ball player, better than most people realize. Those 64 St. Louis Cardinals are the only squad he actually plays a World Series for. He missed out by 67 and 68. He was gone. He was with the Mets, then the White Sox, then finally with LA in 68. But during the Gold Glove, when it first came up, he actually won the award 4 straight, 5 or 6 years. The interesting thing is, the year he won the MVP, he does not win the Gold Glove. Interestingly enough, I actually think it probably went to Santo in 64. I may be wrong about that. But ready for this, starting with when he was 24. Now, what hurt Boyer, he does come up late. He's 24 years old. All right. Usually your great players come up much earlier than that, 2021. I think of Bench. I think of Mays. But nevertheless, he comes up. He actually leads the league in being caught stealing with 17 in 1955. But he has 18 in 62, follows that with 26 in 98, 19 in 62, 23 in 90, 28 in 94. In those 2 years, he was over 300. Ready for this? He hit over 300 In 4 of his first 6 years. He had 306 and 56, 307, 309 and 58 and 59, and he hit 304 in 1960. And then, unbelievable year, hit 329 in 1961. I mean, good ball player. And never only hit 32 home runs once in his career. So you're talking about a guy, and Baseball Reference would probably say he probably was like 20, 81, maybe 288. Let me just see what they have. 22, 91. I said 282, 287. A very good career, very good defensive third baseman. Clete, from what I understand, Clete Boyer might have been some people think that he might have been a better defensive third baseman than Brooks Robinson. I never saw him play, Clete Boyer. I was really too young, and he was too late in his career for me to see him every day. Now, here are the two guys I just wanted to mention. Both players, this is a great trivia question. They're the only two players to win Gold Gloves at two different positions. Erstad won it at first and in the outfield, and Placido Polanco won it at second and third base. Now, I wanted to turn my attention a little bit more. Before I get on to Vic Power, I'd like to just show this. These are one of my favorite, and I'll tell you why. This is a fun one because not only do I have Jim Cott as one of the focus, but I also have 4 other pitchers. And, of course, Yankee fans will remember Ralph Terry. Then there is Jim Bunning, Hall of Famer. Remember, he won and pitched the perfect game, 1964 against the Mets during the Phillies' almost year of 1964. Camilo Pascual and Juan Pizarro. I'd like to focus a little on Camilo Pascual. Juan Pizarro, I saw late in his career. And, Ralph Terry, here's an interesting thing. When I was a kid, and I know I'm wrong saying this, Terry was over 500 for his career. He's 107 and 99. He only carries an 11 WAR. I always thought Ralph Terry, he won 23 games in 62. He won 17 with the Yankees in 63, and he won 16 with the Yankees in 1961. He's one of those guys that started with the Yankees, goes to the A's, the Kansas City A's, comes back to the Yankees, and really finishes. He won 78 games with the Yankees against 59 losses. He had a .569 winning percentage. Now, why is he kind of interesting to me? Is that he so embodied those Yankee teams. They would trade players to Kansas City, get players back who they needed to win the pennant. And then the one year, he's fortunate enough. He goes from, the pennant-winning Yankees, and he goes to a perennial last place losing organization like the A's. But the Yankees rescue him, bring him back to New York, and he repays them by helping them win a few pennants and a World Series. I know he's on the losing end. He was on the winning end in 62. He was the pitcher when Willie McCovey laced that line drive in the last inning with the bases loaded. And that's where I get the feeling with Ralph Terry. I always thought he had a better record than indicated. However, and this is always the big if, imagine if Terry had managed to stay with the Yankees for his whole career, because it did go for 12 years, his career. And let's just say those 4 years he spent in Kansas City with the Yankees, he basically, in 8 years with the Yankees, he basically went, let's say, probably about 10-7. He pitches for the A's, and he's 18-33. And you could conceivably change that around and say, let's just say he went and won 40 more games with the Yankees, eliminate the Kansas City career. So he wins 40 more games with the New York Yankees, and he only loses, let's say, 30. Now, all of a sudden, his career is, let's say, 118 and 91. It's not bad. Not only that, but theoretically, he would have pitched for the 57 Yankees. He would have pitched for the 58 Yankees, and who go on to win pennants in a World Series. So it would have been interesting had Terry's career had they just been able to hold on to him. Bunning, like I said, Hall of Fame pitcher, senator, I believe, from Kentucky. But the guy who I want to talk about, and this is why, sometimes you really got to look. Camilo Pascual, one of the last Cubans to play in baseball before it was shut down. Here's the deal with him. Man, from age 1959, from age 25 to age 30, Camilo was a really good pitcher for a lousy team. The Washington Senators, maybe I'll even give you this. One of his best years, 1960 with the Washington Senators, before they become the Minnesota Twins. All right, they're 73 and 81. All right, mediocre. Not terrible, mediocre. But here's what he did. He was 12 and 8 in 22 games. All right. When they moved to Minnesota, all right, he goes 15 and 16 his first year. Then he has back-to-back 20-win seasons. In fact, he leads the league in complete games. Once with the Senators in 1959, and in those back-to-back years with Minnesota, 62 and 63, 18 complete games. Guys today don't even have 18 complete games in their career. That's how the game has changed. Not only that, but he had led the league with 6 shutouts in 59, had 8 shutouts to lead the league in 61 when he was 15 and 16. So he basically had to pitch a shutout to win a ball game, and then 5 shutouts when he went 20 and 11. Now, Minnesota's records in those 2 back-to-back 62 and 63 years, all right, they were 91 and 71, all right, and 91 and 70. In other words, you put Camilo Pascual on good teams, and he was a good pitcher. You put him on a bad team, and he was still a good pitcher. In fact, the shame of it is that, again, maybe if he had been younger, that's the big if. Maybe if he comes up with Washington at the age of 20 in 1959, so he's not spending his first part of his career with Washington. Ready for this? He had 6, 12, 28 wins from 54 to 58. 28 wins. He had 1937 and 29, 37, 36, and 30. He had 66 losses in his first 5 years. He was 6 and 18 in 1956. 5.87 ERA. Okay, learning the ropes, you could say. I am sure he had 6 complete games, though. He was 6 and 18 and had 6 complete games with 2 saves. Clearly, he's a better pitcher than his record indicated, which is why many guys in the metrics, they really want to do away with win and loss. I'm in disagreement with that, but that's for another day and another argument. Okay, here's the guy who I most wanted to focus on today, and that was Vic Power. Ready for this? Vic Power was unbelievable. After Gil Hodges won the Gold Glove in 1957, all right, when they gave it to one guy, and let me just see if I can find this. Power goes on to win the Gold Glove from 58 to 64. He wins the Gold Glove playing for Kansas City, then Cleveland, and of course Minnesota, then the LA Angels and the Philadelphia Phillies. In short, I'm actually starting to think he might be the only player, and I'm just going to. He's the only player that probably won the Gold Glove playing for 3 different teams in 1964. I haven't seen anyone else do that yet. So there's an interesting thing. Now, I was looking at Power, and I love all these cards because they're all different, but it just goes to show you how many different teams he played for. Love this one the best. I just love that. And I used to love the pennant like that with the Angels. That was pretty awesome. But those years with those teams, here's some of the highlights of Vic Power's career. Ready for this? June 20th. I'll show you right here from his Cleveland Indian card. All right. He was traded quite a bit. I'm not denying that. It would seem to me that I don't know whether he was not a manager's dream. Let's just say that. But here's the thing. Those years that he won the Gold Glove, he was also an MVP. Never won the MVP, but 4, 5, 6, 7 times finished in the MVP. Top 25. And was an all-star 4 times in his career. All right. Just to give you an idea, Power actually was one of the last players to steal home plays twice in one game. Just give you a season highlight with him. I got to be honest with you, I have a feeling I know who the artist here is. I can just tell by the shoe. And it might be a Mad magazine artist by the name of Jack Davis, because I love and I've emulated, tried to copy, do anything I could to draw shoes and feet on my cartoons. And this looks like a Jack Davis cartoon. All right, here's highlights. June 21st, home run in the 14th inning, beats New York. June 30th, Vicks inside the park homer, scores 2 to top Chicago 3-1. July 11th, single in the 8th inning, drives in winning run against Detroit. September 9th, 9th inning double, brings Indians win over the White Sox 2-1. September 7th, long sac fly in 9th, scores deciding run in win over Detroit. Guys, that's 5 game-winning RBIs, 4 game-winning hits. Most players don't have 5 game-winning RBIs in their careers, let alone in one season. And notice this. He was never known for being a long ball specialist. In fact, Power, you would say, was more of a line drive hitter. How do I know that? Well, his high was 16 home runs, which he did twice. He accomplished it with the 62 Twins, was 1663 and 290, and he did it early in his career when he was traded from Kansas City to Cleveland and totaled 1680, 312 batting average, but led the league in triples with 10 and hammered out 37 doubles that year. Now, the guy who I most equate him to in a lot of ways scored 98 runs and 102 runs in 1959. He has a 15.3 WAR. And I guess this is what is getting me upset with the WAR. He's 15.3, yet he shows he can hit the ball, hit with some power, is clutch, drives in runs, scores runs, hits to all fields. Maybe not a big on-base percentage guy, didn't draw a lot of walks in his career, but the guy who I equate him to, I can't really equate him to Keith Hernandez, but I did find a guy who he's very similar to in my mind, and that was Wes Parker of the LA Dodgers. Now, Parker's never getting into the Hall of Fame, as I can see it right now, but I think Parker, in a lot of ways, is regarded as, I don't know, put it this way. Where Power has a 16 WAR, Power, and this is my problem with the WAR, he has a 15.3 WAR over his career, playing 16 years. Parker, in 9 years, winning 6 Gold Gloves. Remember, he kind of retired from baseball to go into acting. Parker has a 22 WAR for his career. I don't understand that, particularly when I'm going to tell you this. Parker had 3 seasons where he hit double digits in home runs. Power averaged at least double digits in his prime. He hit 47 doubles, Parker this is, in 1970 to lead the league. And he did drive in 111 runs that year with only 10 home runs, and he did hit 319. Best offensive season. But here are his other stats. He helps the Dodgers in 65, only hits 8 home runs, I know he's playing in Los Angeles. I know that. It's the dead ball. All right. But it wasn't like Power was playing in any bandbox. I mean, Cleveland's Municipal Stadium, Kansas City, I think they had a short right field porch, but you're playing with a crummy team. And with Minnesota, you got to remember that Power is up there late in his career. That's number one. And I think if you talk to most experts, he's only there for 2 years. That Minnesota is probably a offense neutral, maybe a little bit more of a slugger's paradise, but it wasn't like Fenway. It wasn't like Detroit. All right. And it wasn't like Yankee Stadium right field. So it wasn't like Power was playing in these bandboxes, and yet he has a lower WAR. Now, maybe this is what hurts him, is that Power retires from the game age 37, whereas Parker put in 9 good years. But the thing is with Parker is that 9 good years, all with the Dodgers. And that probably does help his WAR, while you can get a negative WAR by, if you have a mediocre season or whatever. And really, Power stuck around from 64 and 65, age 36, really doesn't do too much in terms of offense to help him out. Okay? But as far, I would just love to know why. Better stats overall, 1366, 284 batting average, and Gold Gloves galore, just like Parker. And yet Parker, ready, 859, 267. Parker has has a higher WAR than Power. And again, I like the WAR. I've said that before on the show. I appreciate the WAR. I think anything that tries to give better with the metrics, anything that gives us a better analysis of the individual talents and potentials of a player are important to evaluate the player's importance and value for a team. At the same time, it seems like sometimes the WAR just doesn't justify what we see out on the field or what we read in terms of statistics. For Vic Power, an unbelievable Gold Glove winning first baseman who could pick it with the best, as they would say. All right. A Gold Glove winner, and this week's highlight on Park Ridge Sports History. Hope you enjoy. This is Will O'Toole wishing you a great week, and see you here next week with another edition of Park Ridge Sports History. Bye now.